Welcome to The Explainer. You see the headlines about AI everywhere, right? Well, today we're going to look behind those headlines. We're talking about a massive, high-stakes chess match being played by the biggest names in tech. So let's get right to it. Beyond all the hype, who is actually winning this AI race? And I'm not just talking about who has the coolest new chatbot. We're talking about who is building real, lasting power. That's what we're going to connect the dots on today. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it down. We'll look at the big moves from big tech, then check out the scrappy startups trying to compete. After that, we'll talk about the insane amount of money being spent on the physical hardware, the infrastructure. And finally, we'll get into the culture, the conflicts, and what all of this really means for people. All right, first up, the giants. We're talking about the biggest companies in the world. And believe me, they are not just playing around with AI. They are betting their entire empires on it, using their huge piles of cash and resources to try and lock down this market for decades. And what's the vibe coming from the top? Well, it's pure confidence. You see this quote here from Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA. And you've got to remember, NVIDIA makes the chips that pretty much are the AI revolution. So when this guy says everything's on track, well, the entire industry listens. It's a clear signal that the established players are full steam ahead. And you can see here, their strategies are pretty fascinating. You've got Google trying to pull off this huge deal to get its AI, Gemini, onto Apple's iPhones. I mean, can you imagine? That's 1 billion devices right there. Then you have Amazon pushing its Alexa assistant out to, well, pretty much everyone in the US. And Microsoft, they're laser focused on using AI for cybersecurity. See the pattern? They're not just building new toys, they're embedding AI right into the heart of what they already do best. Okay. So that's the big guys. But what about the challengers? Outside of those huge company walls, there's this really interesting fight going on. It's a battle of ideas, with startups scrapping for their own slice of the future. And this right here really gets at a huge difference in how they think. You've got this French startup, Mistral AI, basically saying too many GPUs makes you lazy. Their whole philosophy is that being more efficient and focused, kind of like the human brain, is what leads to real breakthroughs. And then you have the big lab approach, which is just throw more computers at it, throw more money, more GPUs at the problem until it's solved. It's a total David versus Goliath story, but for the age of AI. It's brains versus brute force. And here's another big split. How do you actually make money from this stuff? Anthropic, the company behind Claude, says absolutely no ads. They think it's just incongruous. It just doesn't fit with having a conversation with an AI. But on the other side, OpenAI is already testing ads on ChatGPT. This isn't just a business decision, you know? It's going to define how we all end up interacting with these tools. And it's not just, kids in hoodies starting these companies. You've got heavy hitters, tech veterans like Sheryl Sandberg from Meta, backing specialized AI startups like Slashwork. When you see that happen, it's a huge signal. It tells you that the smart money isn't just on the giant do-everything AI models. It's also on smaller, focused tools that solve one specific problem really, really well. Okay, but all this amazing software, all these models, they have to live somewhere, right? They don't just exist in the cloud. That brings us to what I like to call the infrastructure gold rush. We're talking about the actual physical stuff, the hardware, the data centers that forms the backbone of this whole AI economy. Just look at this number, $5 billion. That's what one private equity firm and one telecom company are dropping to get a piece of a single data center company. This isn't just some tech investment. This is a massive bet on what is essentially the digital real estate of the 21st century. And that $5 billion investment? It's for a company that's valued at almost $14 billion total. It really shows you how much the picks and shovels are worth in this gold rush. Everyone talks about the AI companies digging for gold, but the folks selling them the tools, the data centers, the hardware, they're the ones getting quietly incredibly rich. So when you have this much money and power flowing into one area, it's about more than just servers and chips. It starts to affect people. And that brings us to our last section, the culture, the conflicts, and the very real human side of this whole AI economy. And the scale of this power consolidation is just, it's hard to even wrap your head around. Take what people are starting to call the Muskonomy. We're talking about one person, Elon Musk, at the head of 2 separate companies, and each one is valued at roughly $1 trillion. $1 trillion. We really haven't seen that kind of industrial power concentrated in one person's hands in like 100 years. So how in the world did that happen? Well, basically by merging his new AI company, xAI, with SpaceX, his rocket company. He's essentially built a second empire that's on the same scale as Tesla. The strategy is pretty genius if you think about it. You take all the data and the brilliant engineers from SpaceX and you combine that with the pure brute force computing power of xAI. What you get is an absolute powerhouse. But when you have that much power concentrated at the top, it creates a lot of pressure down below. And that's where you start to see sparks fly. Take this story from Pinterest. Some employees built an internal tool just to track layoffs at the company. And the CEO reportedly did not like that. He lashed out and fired them. It's a small story, but it reveals this deep tension that's just bubbling under the surface in tech right now. And it really makes you ask a tough question, right? Where is the line between corporate security and just letting your employees know what's going on? As these companies are growing like crazy because of AI, what rights do the people working there actually have? That whole Pinterest thing, it's really just one small part of a much bigger conversation about power and transparency. So when you put it all together, you see that this AI race, it's so much more than just who has the best code. It's a game of power, of money, of these completely different ideas about what the future should look like. And right in the middle of it all are the people, the culture, and the conflicts. And that leaves us with one last big question to think about. I mean, the speed of all this is just incredible, and the potential good it could do is enormous. But as all this money and all this power gets more and more concentrated in just a few hands, you have to ask yourself, what's the real price we're going to pay for all this progress?